if you're going to benchmark, you really want to try and choose objective measurement techniques. Do you have anything in there that says how do you rate other than I liked it, it was nice? What do you do to get objectivity into the rating?
Well, that's where third parties can be very helpful. For instance, at the hospital that we interviewed at Sky Lakes, they use Press-Ganey scores, which are an independent third party that comes in and actually does the surveys of customers and rates you compared to others nation and internationally wide, so that you know how you rate compared to all the others. And that's very helpful to have. You get what you measure. So having those kind of benchmarks to read are really critical.
And I advise people, if you're going to do a survey, like in this particular slide we're talking about internal communication, you can survey your employees and go with a scale of 1 to 10 and see where you come in on that scale as an average, and then you'll know how you're doing. And when you survey them, that same group again in 3 to 6 months, you'll notice if those scores went up, if people are feeling better about what you're doing or the changes that you've made. So it can be simple, and some of it is just face-to-face qualitative data. Sitting down and really talking to your employees and saying, how are we doing? Are we communicating to you what it is that you need to know to do your job well?
And a big piece of them to answer honestly the second time, because everyone will answer honestly the first time, is whether or not you actually do something about what they say after you've asked them the first time. Because I've seen situations where they ask the same questions a year later, and have completely ignored the answers from last year.
And that's where, I don't want to call it bad, but ineffective management comes into play. It was interesting because I did 2 trainings for 2 sister companies. And one of them, the manager took her front line right before I started to speak, and she said, "We are investing in you. We are spending money on you that we usually spend only on management, because we believe in how much influence you have on our customers and the success of our company." That was her attitude. The sister company, you better listen to what she has to say, because we only want good employees here. And to me,
wow.
She said to me privately, because I had requested that she say the same thing. I said, it might be helpful if you said this, and she said, no, either they're going to do well or I'm going to fire them. So,
what a motivating environment.
But again, we're dealing with personalities, and managers aren't always equipped and trained on the emotional aspect of success.
Well,
the ones that are, though, are going to have better success company-wide.
Well, I have to admit, I come out of a technical environment, highly technical, and the ratio of good managers to bad is overwhelmingly embarrassing. That for every good manager you see 9 that are really bad.
Yeah. And one way to counteract that is to have company-wide accountability as you're changing your culture as a company, so that managers are accountable to other managers. They have to report back to their peers on their part in the process of changing over to a more customer-centric way of being. So it's not necessarily easy to steer the boat in a new direction, but when you have accountability play a role in it, it's much easier.
And this is where I begin to say, or return back to my concept, it has to really come from the top down, because if the CEO isn't in the boat, then who's going to be, the trickle down is what really matters here.
What you do, if your CEO doesn't want this, it's never going to happen. I don't know if you think all the way back to when you were going to elementary school, have you ever noticed that the personality of the school often picks up on the personality of the principal of this school? And so you've got there is an element to that. But then on the same front that I'm saying that, we've got this amazing example over and over again of an empowered front line and how that can change things around. So that even one person who's persistent and consistent in their efforts to turn things around can be the catalyst.
Now,
but you do need, you do.
Marilyn, I'm sorry to do what I'm going to do, but you scratched me in a place where it's like, ooh, that's a big sore I have.
Ooh, we better hear about
that
it.
word empowerment is so abused. How do you define empowerment? And how do you ascertain, if people are pseudo-empowered or truly empowered?
Oh, I got your answer for that one. When your frontline, I do, because you're right. Certain words are overused, and then they become lip service and mean nothing. When your frontline trains your frontline, rather than having managers train the frontline, you've got empowered frontline.
Okay. All right.
Lori, you want to tell a little bit about that, the whole idea of an empowered frontline?
Well, the way I would define it is your frontline is not empowered if they make a decision in your absence and then you pick it apart and and tell them what they did wrong when you get back. The owner of the company that I work for and manage during my typical business hours is what I consider a perfect empowering manager, because one of the things that he does is if you make a mistake, if you make a decision because, you're in the line of fire with a customer and it's a decision that he's not quite on board with,
right.
He'll say, well, I get it. Next time, let's, we might want to consider this, this, and this.
Mm-hmm.
It's not picking apart your decision as much as allowing you to make it and learn from it, and then regrouping afterwards and discussing what you might do differently next time.
Well,
I do
recall, I mean, I'm an active LinkedIn user, and I do recall a comment that was made somewhere about what's the most difficult skill that you have. And one of the managers said, the most difficult thing for me to do is to deliberately allow my people to make mistakes. And if you listen to Tom Peters, he says, look, mistakes are the thing of learning. And as you mentioned earlier in this presentation, I don't know anyone who learns purely deductively or inductively. We all got to stub our toes to feel the pain.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. The spa that we interviewed, we found this brilliant. She was like 27 and absolutely had the wisdom of the ages. I could not believe it. And I asked her, how are you so young and so wise in how you do things? And she said, I've always had bosses who let me make mistakes and learn from them. So just what you're saying, Edward, that it isn't easy to give up control and let someone do something less than perfect as they learn to do it better. Mm-hmm. But how else will they get good?
Yeah, you can't tell people.
The other piece to that, though, as a manager and owner of a company, is that you've got to give them a compass. You've got to give your staff a compass. And one of the ways you do that is by, discussing and making it known with your employees who you are as a company, what's important to you. And I'll give you an example. At Communicore, one of the things that I tell people is we don't lie. A lot of people in business lie. They have small little white lies because they think they're going to hurt someone's feelings, and so what we very clearly let our employees know, a little white lie is still a lie. You don't do that. It's, that ethics and integrity, transparency are critical to us. It's discussed on a regular basis. We talk about things that happen in meetings. And then what happens is your younger frontline employees learn by watching, and they have a compass that guides them when they're faced with making a decision without, an upper-level manager's direction. They know what to keep in mind. It's really important to give them that compass.
And the end-to-end integrity that's required for that, because certainly it's easy to say, just like empowering people, it's easy to say, yes, we don't tell lies, and then the other side of the face goes around and tells lies. So
exactly.
That has to be a thoroughly embedded, again, dare I say, top-down approach.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, and it's got to be discussed. There's got to be, one of the things we talk about in creating a really strong customer service culture is there's got to be regular communication and discussion about things that happened and how they were resolved and what went right and what went wrong, what we'll do differently next time. Kudos for the great, when someone manages a delicate situation well, talk about it so that others can see how that was managed and go, I can pull on that next time.
How do you define the difference between right and wrong? Because some people's right is definitely my wrong.
Absolutely.
Well, and the phrase, this is how we do things, often are about the unwritten